They blamed my trained dogs for their aggressive dog attacking my fence, then acted like I was the problem. So I documented everything on camera and sent proof to the neighborhood leader, who publicly exposed them for letting dogs run loose and leaving messes behind. Stick around, because today's stories will leave you absolutely speechless. Story 1. I tried being nice. Then I weaponized the neighborhood group chat. It all started about a year ago, and I'm gonna be real, I wasn't looking for a fight. I've got 3 dogs, and I take training seriously. If they bark outside, they're brought in right away, and everything they do is managed and obedience-based. My neighbors moved in and at first they seemed impressed, like they couldn't believe how calm my dogs were. But you could also tell it made them uncomfortable, because their 3 dogs were basically chaos on 4 legs. Constant barking, zero control, and when my dogs were outside and theirs got riled up, it was like watching a fuse light. Every time I walked out to handle my dogs, they'd hit me with the same excuse: they're just being dogs. They're doing their job. Translation: they didn't want to admit their dogs were the problem. Our yards are separated by a vinyl picket fence. They used my fence as part of their setup, like I was the 4th wall in their whole property. That would have been fine, except one of their dogs started repeatedly trying to break through my fence to get to mine. I tried to fix it like an adult. I added privacy backing to the fence, spent money and time planting 15 boxwood shrubs to block the sight lines, and honestly put in way more effort than most people would. Even their husband mocked me, basically saying, "Yeah, that won't work. They'll still hear each other." And he was right, because sound travels and aggression doesn't care about landscaping. So I sent a polite, carefully worded text asking them to stop their dog from attacking my fence, explained I was worried it was going to get damaged, offered solutions, and stressed safety. I even tried to keep the peace. Their response? They played the victim and blamed my dogs. Then the wife started sending messages that were honestly unhinged, acting like my request ruined her week and that I owed her an apology. I was like, are you serious? At some point, they put up a 6-foot privacy fence attached to mine. It wasn't exactly legal, but whatever, I figured fine, they don't want to see me and I don't want to see them. So I thought, okay, problem solved. Nope. They started letting their dogs run off-leash in the unfenced areas. That's when I installed security cameras. And thank God I did, because the footage showed everything. The same dog charging my fence to attack mine, the other dogs running into my yard, and then all 3 bolting into the street where people walk all the time. When they started cursing me out because their dog tried attacking mine again, I finally involved the police. And this is the part that still sticks with me: the lieutenant watched the videos and told me to keep sending clips. He said they'd be fined every single time, and he looked genuinely worried about what could happen if a person got hurt. So yeah, I'm not proud of how petty this next part is, but it was the perfect match for their energy. Tonight I caught them on camera walking their dog in the wildlife refuge across the street. The dog pooped, and they didn't pick it up. Our neighborhood has a Facebook group where people constantly complain about mystery poop. Usually folks shrug it off. Not this time. I sent the video to the community leader, and he told me to post it publicly and also email every resident about what they were doing. By morning, the whole neighborhood knew exactly who it was. People called them out for letting dogs off-leash, for having an aggressive dog that kept trying to attack other animals, and for not cleaning up after them. Someone even commented they'd stopped walking on our block because they didn't feel safe. And the best part? The community leader didn't just post about it. He went over there too, personally, to shame them and said he'd bring it up with the cops as well. Power in numbers, right? So tonight, instead of me sitting around stressed and angry, they got publicly called out, privately confronted, and they're likely headed toward more fines. Meanwhile, I just sat back knowing every word I said was backed by video evidence, with no way for them to twist the story. Story 2, I made her think she caught her affair. Alright, so I'm gonna tell you this story exactly how it happened, because honestly it still sounds unreal when I say it out loud. It started about a year before I finally had enough, and by the time it ended, my life had flipped upside down in the most public, humiliating way possible. I met my wife in college, and I truly thought she was the one. We dated for 2 years, got engaged, and then had this huge wedding in this small southern town where everybody knew everybody. Her family was pretty well off, and while I was grinding through a master's in engineering, she was finishing her doctorate in anthropology. We were both building a future, and I felt like we were doing it together. Then she gets this chance to earn extra money on a religious studies trip to Jamaica. She's gone for 6 weeks, and I'm not gonna lie, I was annoyed about the time apart, but I supported it. She asked me if I was okay with it, and I said yes right away because it felt like a win-win. Here's the part that makes my stomach tighten even now. While she's out there getting paid and living her best life, she's not just sightseeing. She's hooking up with a professor who set the trip up. The same guy who hung around our lives, acted friendly, smoked my weed, drank my beer, the whole "we're cool" routine. I didn't know any of this. I was working extra shifts and trying to stack money so I could match what she was making and surprise her when she got back. Meanwhile, she's using that time to do the exact opposite of what I thought we were doing. One of the students from the trip tracked me down and basically dropped the bomb. At first I didn't believe it. I thought, no way, not her. But then I started looking anyway, and once I found even a little proof, I went into full detective mode. I checked her messages while she was asleep. Nothing obvious at first. No big smoking gun. But then I found the voicemail records, and that's where it hit. There was a message from that professor, acting like it was a game, like I was the clueless idiot they were laughing about. After that, I couldn't unsee it. I opened her laptop and dug through emails. There were so many messages, so much mocking, so many details that made me feel sick. They weren't just cheating. They were enjoying the fact that I had no clue. They were making jokes about being in our bed. I was wrecked. I didn't instantly do anything because I was too hurt and too stunned to think straight. For a couple weeks I tried to act normal, but everything felt wrong. I kept noticing little things. Little gaps in her story. Little changes in her behavior. And then one detail finally snapped the whole picture into place. We had this weed-based lube situation we used, and it was getting used up fast even though we weren't having sex. That's the kind of small thing you'd ignore if you didn't have a reason to suspect. But once you're suspicious, your brain starts connecting dots like it's on trial. I got furious in a way that didn't even feel human. I wasn't just mad that she cheated. I was mad that they were using my stuff, in my home, in my bed, like I was nothing. So I decided I wasn't going to just be the guy who gets cheated on quietly. I wanted consequences. Here's what I did. While she was out doing her studying at the library routine, I made a new batch of that same weed-based product. I kept it smelling and looking normal, but I changed what it contained. I set it up so it would be used the way it always was. Then I waited. I went about my day like nothing was happening because I needed the timing to work. A few days later, she comes back with this sudden complaint. That night, after she went to sleep, I made a move on her phone, deleting my contact and swapping in his number where mine used to be. In other words, I set it up so she would reach the right person at the right time without realizing what I'd done. The next morning, she's in the shower and I get a text that makes my blood run cold and hot at the same time. She's basically asking if I'm okay, because she's super itchy and something feels off. Then I hit her back with the worst possible truth, the kind that turns a private betrayal into a public disaster. I told her I thought it cleared up, but I guess I had a flare-up, and that I had herpes, and now she did too. I can still picture her reaction, because I could hear this awful sound from the other room like she'd been punched. When she got out, she was crying but she was also furious. She sat at the table trying to process it, trying to figure out how to survive what she'd just been told. And I could see it in her face, the anger mixed with fear. I didn't just want her upset. I wanted her cornered. I wanted her to react. So when she finally started texting again, she didn't just ask for comfort. She asked for secrecy. She basically told him, "Thanks for the good times, but can you keep this between us? I don't want to ruin my chances with anyone else." Do you understand what that means? She wasn't just confessing. She was confessing while begging for a cover-up, and that's when I knew she was going to do exactly what I needed her to do. I followed her to campus and found out where he worked. I parked a few lots away, walked in at the worst possible moment, and then I confronted him in his office. She shows up screaming at him. Not quietly. Not in a hallway where it could be ignored. She's yelling in front of people. Professors. Students. Colleagues. Everyone. He looks completely stunned, like he didn't expect the situation to explode. She's ugly crying while trying to explain what happened. And I'm standing there watching everything fall apart, feeling like I finally got to breathe. The fallout was immediate. Their whole department was in chaos. The professor lost his job because it violated conduct rules at the university. My wife never finished her doctorate. She went on to a life that, from the outside, looked like she was stuck in a loop. And me? We divorced the following year, but state law forced a 1-year separation first, so it dragged out. Still, I got to keep most of the assets we built together, mainly savings. I had worked for that life, and I wasn't walking away empty-handed. Years later, I'll be honest, the details don't matter as much as the feeling. Watching them deal with the consequences of their choices was the cleanest, most satisfying justice I've ever seen. It took time for everything to unfold, but by the end, I wasn't the one left holding the mess. I was the one who got my life back. And honestly, that's the part that still feels triumphant. TLDR, my wife cheated with a professor. I engineered a situation that made it look like she caught herpes from me, then set up her messages so she confronted him publicly, ruining his career and leading to our divorce. Story 3, the company card trap that snapped back. It all started back in March 2021, during lockdowns, when everything felt tense and weird and everyone was on edge. I was managing a mid-sized team, and I got assigned a new hire right when we were already stretched thin. I'll call her evil, because that's exactly the vibe she gave off. She was the type who could pitch a whole universe of plans, but somehow none of it ever turned into actual results. Clients would complain she wasn't responding, and she always had some excuse ready. I'd hear things like it got lost. They're being difficult, or I swear I emailed it, and then nothing would change. After one of our monthly meetings, I finally sat her down and told her straight, if she couldn't keep up, she needed to flag it early so we could help. I wasn't trying to ruin her life, but her lack of follow-through was dragging the entire team down. So I set a simple routine. Monday mornings, 10 minutes with me to go over priorities, and if she needed support, she'd say it. She tolerated the check-in like she was chewing glass. And honestly, I should have noticed the attitude sooner, because I later realized she wasn't just annoyed. She was planning something. My job included access to a purchasing card. It wasn't technically in my name, but I had the authorization to use it for small office purchases or client-related stuff, up to about $500. The card sat in a shared office space where 2 managers could access it. Then one day, accounts called me. They were asking about abnormal charges. We're talking a Photoshop subscription, multiple food deliveries, and even an HBO-type streaming charge. I told them I had no idea. I told them to check with the other manager. But the other manager also claimed ignorance. So the paper trail got louder fast. After the weekend, I got called into the director's office. I remember sitting down and feeling my stomach drop like I'd missed a step on a staircase. The director was going on about privileged access and an agreement for proper use. He said the charges were tied to my accounts and my details, even to an email address that had my name in it. Like, there was no maybe. It was my identity attached to the purchases. I denied everything. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was spiraling. I kept running through possibilities like, did I get hacked? Or did I save something somewhere? Or is my wife using this by accident? I even heard myself apologizing, because when you're accused, your brain starts bargaining for the smallest version of the truth. When I finally got out of that meeting, I was still rattled. That's when Evil was waiting at my office door like she'd been waiting for a show to start. She had this huge smile and acted sweet, like she was doing me a favor. She asked if I'd be at the next morning meeting, and I said yes, obviously, because why wouldn't I? She just sipped her tea and told me, oh, no reason, then walked away like nothing happened. Something felt off. I spent the next couple hours doing damage control. I called my wife. I contacted Adobe. I followed the same steps accounts had already taken. I wanted proof, not just panic. And the proof kept stacking. Someone had used my name and company card to buy subscriptions and deliveries online. It was like they were trying to make me look both incompetent and dishonest at the same time. Then the Uber Eats order became the smoking gun. When I walked through what happened with support, they told me where the food was delivered. It was in our city, so I immediately ruled out some your data got stolen and used in another country nonsense. This wasn't random. This was local. My anger kicked in hard. I didn't want to assume the worst, but my gut wouldn't shut up. So I pulled up Evil's employee info and checked her address. Then I dropped a pin on her place. Finally, I compared it to the delivery location Uber Eats gave me. It matched the corner of her block. I went to IT that night and had them give me access to her laptop. When I opened her work account, I found it. Under her listed accounts, the same email tied to my name was there, used for the purchases. She'd been careful in some ways, but not careful enough. She had even used an IP address that pointed back to the office, which made it look like the charges came from where I worked. She'd tried to route deliveries to a different address too, and she'd created a fake email. But the one thing she did not account for was leaving the wrong trail inside a work computer. I called the director that night with what I found, and I made sure the IT guy was there to back up that it wasn't something I made up. I wanted receipts, not vibes. The next day, the director called Evil in. And I'm not exaggerating, when she walked out, it was like the building was bracing itself. She was fired on the spot, and the reaction was so intense it felt theatrical. When she came out, she was trying not to cry, and she looked completely stunned, like she thought her little plan was bulletproof. I made sure I was standing in the hallway with my tea, watching her pass, because she wanted a reaction. She just didn't get to choose which one. Later, I did one last little thing. I had going away Wendy's delivered. Paid for with my own card, because I wanted it to be clear I wasn't using company money anymore. It was basically a goodbye note disguised as fast food. The director apologized afterward and we kept things professional. I left the company in October for a new job. Evil never apologized, and I never saw her again. So yeah, revenge and justice can look pretty similar when someone tries to frame you and you just happen to find the receipts first. Story 4. I caught a sysadmin trying to wipe evidence. Honestly, my job keeps me busy in the best way. I'm a Sparky, so yeah, I do the usual electrician stuff, but I also love anything with networks, cabinets, testing gear, and those little blinking lights that make you feel like you're inside the Matrix. And every time I roll up in high vis, looking like I just crawled out of a shed, people get this confused look like, wait, are you even IT? It's funny, and sometimes it helps. One day, a junior government system admin named Tom landed at a 2,000 student high school. The school was pumped because he applied for an IT manager role, and the principal basically gave him a bigger title and more control to keep him happy. Tom didn't just take the job, he took over the place. Within months, he'd managed to rub basically everyone the wrong way, teachers included. Now, there were two major projects coming up during the school break. First, we were rolling out a new standalone door access system that was networked. Second, we'd swap the old lighting for energy-efficient LED panels. I was supposed to run both jobs. Tom tried to muscle in early, insisting he'd be trained and would be in charge because it was his school's network. The principal told him to back off and stay away from the standalone system. Tom hated that. A little over 5 weeks after the door system went live, I get a phone call while I'm driving. The school says the doors are acting up. I turn around immediately, already annoyed, because I was halfway through a sing-along and I was also kind of looking forward to fresh scones later. When I get there, the admin terminal shows two problems. Teachers can't open certain doors, and some doors the admin staff are trying to reconfigure just won't respond. At first it looks like normal teething issues. But then I check the system and notice something wild. Most of the network hubs are offline, and when I open the cabinet, the fiber patch lead that connects the hubs is just hanging loose. Not falling out, not maybe it slipped. Dangling like someone unplugged it on purpose. I reconnect it, push the changes through, and then I dig into the logs. The teacher access change was made late in the day, and right after that, the hubs went offline. Even worse, the logs show someone entered that office at a time when only staff should have been there. Tom. I could have confronted the admin staff, but I didn't. Not yet. I figured Tom had been snooping, learning the system, and probably had some kind of login. If I made a fuss too early, he might have talked his way out of it with some IT nonsense, or blamed my work for the patch lead. Plus, someone told me Tom had been running his mouth earlier, acting smug about what you get when electricians manage a network. So I let it slide. For now. Then, 3 days later, it happens again. Same kind of failure, different doors, different hubs. This time, only 4 hubs go down. I check the logs and they're empty, like someone erased the whole trail. The daily backup file is gone too. And the only login that could do that kind of cleanup? The admin account. I also find out something else. The operator console PC in that office was provided to the school, and it was supposed to be wiped and locked down so it couldn't be connected to government networks. Tom must have bypassed that somehow. I even check for cameras and run a deep look for malware, but I come up empty. So that night, I go home and start researching keyloggers like I'm studying for an exam I never asked for. The next week, I get there right as the admin staff are leaving and I tell myself I'm just going to check a few things. Then I set up cameras. One aimed at the back of the PC tower, one watching the screen, and one covering the room. I leave, thinking I'll get answers later. Sure enough, it keeps repeating. Each time, different teachers get hit, different hubs go offline, and the admin login is used to wipe logs and backups after hours. So I tighten the screws and wait for the pattern to become obvious. By the time I pull the footage, I finally see what Tom is doing. He uses the user login to make the door changes, then he yanks the patch lead and installs a tiny keylogger on the USB connection to the keyboard. It's the kind of little black adapter you'd miss if you weren't specifically looking for it. Then he uses what he steals to get the admin password, wipe everything, and delete backups so there's no evidence he was there. And here's the part that really pissed me off. It wasn't just the sabotage. It was the arrogance. He thought he was clever enough to pull it off without anyone noticing, but I maintain networks all the time, and the school security system is way more complex than this door setup. So I decide I'm not just going to catch him. I'm going to make him eat his own ego. Over the next month, we go through the same dance several more times. I collect backups, footage, and proof, while also learning exactly what he's capable of. The goal isn't a quick gotcha. The goal is to build a case strong enough that there's no way he can talk his way out of it. When the next 2-week break hits, we switch to lighting work. It's normal, it's scheduled, and I've got a team of 8. That's the perfect cover. While everyone's doing the light swaps, I install relay cards at specific expansion points inside the security system across multiple buildings. Relays are simple switches, but if you wire them into the right parts of a system, you can interrupt specific data paths or power delivery. The trick is doing it in a way that looks like a mystery network fault instead of obvious tampering. Then I start timing everything. I keep Tom away from areas he shouldn't be in, and I make sure I'm in rooms that justify me being there. When the principal is good and annoyed at Tom for not fixing the network issues, I step up the relay switching. After that, I hit other staff members who'd already made it clear they couldn't stand Tom. The point isn't to hurt anyone. The point is to make him suffer the exact kind of chaos he caused. Eventually, while Tom's dealing with his own mess, I get what I need. I go into his office under the cover of lighting work, look around carefully, and find the keylogger sitting among the clutter. It had probably been moved around, but it was still there. I snap a photo, then I call Tom's old boss, the regional director for government IT. I explain everything: the door sabotage, the wiped logs, the footage, and the keylogger. The director comes down, takes their own photo, and then calls the principal. That day, the principal and director review the video evidence. It gets worse for Tom fast. The keylogger isn't just capturing what it should. It has information from multiple government departments. Not just system stuff. Real personal and internal data. Tom is done. When Tom shows up, he tries to deny it. He tries to claim the keylogger wasn't his. But there's too much on it, too much that only someone with his access could have collected. Then the footage gets played. His face when he realizes I wasn't guessing, I was proving, was something else. I hate to say it, but it was satisfying as hell. They don't prosecute him, because nobody wants a huge public mess. But they do something that matters. Tom gets flagged so he can't work in any government job again, not as a contractor, not even in some low-level role. And since he'd only ever worked in government after university, his whole career path just got slammed shut. Now, I'll admit I made one dumb move. After Tom got removed, the principal asks the director if they can send someone competent to fix the school network issues. And without thinking, I say, "Nah, I'll handle it." Yeah. That's me. I basically volunteered to clean up my own mess. The director even calls me a kind of evil MacGyver, which is hilarious, but also not wrong. I put the network cabling back the right way, removed everything I'd altered, and took all my toys home. And look, I'm not proud of the petty side of it. But Tom tried to wipe evidence on a government asset, and he did it with the kind of confidence that only comes from thinking nobody will ever figure it out. So, yeah. Fuck you, Tom. Story 5, he tried to crash John's reunion pitch, and John played dumb perfectly. It all started about a year ago, but the real punchline hit last Labor Day weekend at our 25th high school reunion. We hadn't even bothered to do the 5-year one because barely anyone showed up. So when we finally got this one together, it felt like we were trying to prove something, you know. We went to a small college prep school, only 72 kids. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and there aren't really cliques because you're constantly running into the same people at different activities. For me and my best friend John, high school was mostly fine. The main exception was this guy named Tom. Tom wasn't the classic movie villain bully. He was worse in a quieter way. He'd roast the smarter kids, make jokes that weren't jokes, and pull fake prank nonsense like staging a bogus party invite at my parents' house. He even helped kick off a rumor about John that was so nasty it barely even made sense. Fast forward to adulthood and John is doing insanely well. In his late 20s he built a real company and actually grew it. He's also turned that success into local charity work, and most recently he helped drive the construction of a STEM center that multiple schools share, including ours. His name went on the building, and yeah, that made him pretty visible in the community. Tom, on the other hand, has always had that flashy, self-promoting get-rich-quick energy. Through the years he bounced from trying to be a DJ, to car sales, to some real estate thing that smelled like mortgage fraud, to investment groups with names that sounded like they came from a thesaurus. Then it turned into full-on crypto bro mode. He'd post non-stop online, and he even tried to DM me a few times with opportunities. I ignored him every time. So picture this reunion. John hosted part of it at his house and barn on a bunch of land. About 50 alumni showed up, plus spouses, and around 20 kids. John and I basically parked ourselves on chairs on the patio with our people. We drank, we caught up, we didn't go hunting for drama. Mid-evening, Tom shows up. He slides over to John with that loud, friendly energy like they're best friends. John stays polite, does the whole "hey how are you" routine, and then Tom starts talking. Not about the reunion. Not about life. Straight into a pitch. He basically tries to butter John up and then drops the line, like, "You've done well, but you could make even more money if you'd get into crypto." John cuts him off immediately, calm as anything. He asks, "Sorry, I didn't catch who you were here with. Is your wife one of our classmates?" Tom pauses like he just got slapped with a wet towel. He says, "No man, it's Tom _. We were classmates. Don't you remember? I used to razz you." John scratches his head and goes, "Honestly? Not really. I remember a lot about our class, but I don't remember you at all." Then John turns a little more serious and gives a small wave to the event planner nearby, a woman named Ashley. He says, "Listen, people approach me like this because of my business. I get it. But this is my home and a private event." Ashley steps in and smiles in that way people do when they're being professionally kind but also ready to escort you out. She tells Tom, "Right this way, sir. We just need to verify your ID against the guest list. I'm sorry, I hope you understand." Tom follows her off, clearly annoyed, like he thinks he's above being questioned. John sits back down, looks at me, and gives me a wink. Then, without raising his voice, he says to the group, "It's unfortunate. I have to be careful." A minute later, someone else chimes in, "Yeah, that was Tom. He was in our class." John shrugs like it's no big deal and says, "Huh. Must not have interacted with him much." Then he changes the subject and moves on like Tom never existed. About 20 minutes pass. Tom comes back, but this time he's not alone. He's with a classmate who helped organize the weekend, and she was close with him back in high school. She tells John, basically, "I heard you said you don't remember Tom. He was in our class for all 4 years. He played football." John still doesn't blink. He just goes, "I'm sorry. Sometimes people don't leave an impression on me. I hope you enjoy my home and have a lovely weekend." Then he turns to his wife and says, "All right. Let's go check on the important people." And if you missed this part, yeah, the kids were the important people. A few minutes later, John texts me, "That was fun." And honestly, that's the part that still gets me. He didn't yell. He didn't make a scene. He just made Tom look ridiculous in front of everyone, like Tom was the one who didn't belong, not the other way around. At a reunion, no less. Cold, clean, and exactly the right level of petty. That's all for today. Which story was your favorite? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video for more insane stories from DT Audio.